All right, so today we are diving deep into raising mentally strong kids. We're going to be drawing on wisdom from Dr. Daniel Amen, a child psychiatrist.
Yeah.
He was recently on the Jay Shetty podcast and shared a lot of great insights. And we're going to try to distill those for you today. We're talking about, raising kids who can really thrive, kids who can bounce back from setbacks, navigate life's challenges.
And that's something a lot of parents are really looking for, that resilience. And I think Dr. Amen's approach is really interesting because he combines neuroscience with this idea of love and logic. It's a parenting style developed by Charles Fay, and it really emphasizes empathy and natural consequences and shared control instead of just like punishment.
Yeah, it's not about shielding our kids, right?
Yeah.
It's about equipping them to face the
For
music.
giving them the tools, right,
Exactly.
to navigate those tough situations.
And one of the biggest things, and this is where it gets really interesting, I think, is that Dr. Amen says it all starts with us. The parents, we have to embody mental strength ourselves.
Right. He's a big, big believer in authenticity, knowing what kind of parent you want to be, and then actually living by those values.
That's a good point. It makes you think, what kind of parent do I want to be? Because they're always watching us.
Always learning from us, yeah.
That's right.
And that actually brings us to this really cool concept that he talks about. He calls it special time. And he suggests that parents set aside 20 minutes every day for dedicated one-on-one time with their child.
Yeah.
No distractions, no commands, just pure connection.
I love that.
He actually shared this story, and it really stuck with me, about his own literary agent who was struggling to connect with his daughter. And he was just at a loss, didn't know what to do, and Dr. Amen suggested special time.
So what happened?
It totally transformed their relationship. The little girl started clinging to her dad, craving that focused attention. And you know what's amazing? It's so simple, but it has such a huge impact.
That's incredible. So it's not just about being physically present, though, right?
It's about really tuning into your child.
Like active listening,
Exactly.
where you're repeating back what you hear, you're focusing on their feelings.
And you resist that urge to jump in and solve all their problems.
That's hard.
It is hard, but it's so important because it helps them feel heard and understood. And when kids feel heard and understood, they start developing their own problem-solving skills.
Makes sense.
They're not relying on you for everything. They actually start trusting their own instincts and capabilities.
I like that.
And this is actually where special time connects to this bigger picture. It helps foster secure attachment.
Which we've talked about a lot. Secure attachment is just so foundational.
It is. It's so important for their emotional well-being. It helps reduce internalized rage, self-doubt. It's about creating this safe, loving bond where your child feels
Seen, valued.
understood. But it's not only about warmth and connection, right? Dr. Amen also believes in setting clear boundaries and structure.
Yeah, he's a big advocate for rules, rhythms, and routines.
Right. Consistency.
And I can really relate to that. Growing up, my siblings and I, we had a routine for cleaning up after dinner. We take turns washing dishes, wiping the table. It never felt like a chore. It was just part of our rhythm, It gave us a sense of responsibility and belonging.
That's such a great example of how routines can build competence and confidence. It's not about being rigid. It's about creating predictability, consistency, which helps kids feel grounded and secure.
But here's where I think a lot of us as parents, we might need to take a step back.
Yeah.
Because Dr. Amen, he cautions against over-solving our kids' problems.
It's so tempting to do, though, right?
It is. It is.
As parents, we just want to jump in and fix everything.
But he says that constantly rescuing them from consequences actually robs them of valuable learning experiences.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and it's kind of counterintuitive. Sometimes the best way to help our kids is to let them struggle a bit.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
He actually cited some studies that found a strong correlation between children having responsibilities at home and developing healthy self-esteem.
Wow, so it's really letting them face those age-appropriate consequences.
Exactly.
Even if it's hard to wash.
Even if it means being uncomfortable.
So what does this look like in practice? Instead of swooping in to fix everything, we need to give our kids space to figure things out on their own.
Right, with appropriate support, of course.
With appropriate support, of course.
And this is where that love and logic approach is so helpful. It's about offering empathy and understanding, not punishment.
Right.
Instead of getting angry or frustrated, we can acknowledge their feelings and help them brainstorm solutions.
So it's like, hey, I see that you're struggling with this. Let's figure out a way to work through this together.
Exactly.
And Dr. Amen also highlighted the importance of praising effort and hard work. instead of just telling kids they're smart,
Right. It's about fostering that growth mindset.
where challenges are seen as opportunities for learning.
Yeah, because when we label kids as smart, we might accidentally make them afraid to take risks or make mistakes.
That's so true.
But when we praise their effort, we encourage them to embrace challenges and see setbacks as opportunities to learn and grow.
And speaking of mistakes, we all make them, especially as parents.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Dr. Amen talks about this guilt cycle, where we overreact to our kids' misbehavior. Then we feel bad. Then we overcompensate, which leads to more problems.
It's a trap a
Yeah.
lot of us fall into.
Absolutely.
But what Dr. Amen suggests is address the misbehavior directly and calmly, rather than letting it slide or blowing up later.
So find that balance.
Right, between being firm and being kind.
And sometimes that means apologizing to our kids,
Yeah, when we mess up.
which can be really tough.
Yeah,
Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, technology and social media,
this is a big one.
raising kids in this digital age.
It's a whole new ballgame.
It really is. And Dr. Amen recommends delaying technology use as long as possible
As long as possible, yeah.
and setting clear boundaries.
Clear boundaries, absolutely.
He's particularly concerned about the addictive nature of social media and its impact on brain development.
Right, he actually referenced this book called Thrilled to Death. Have you heard of it?
I have, yeah.
It explores how constant stimulation of the brain's pleasure centers can lead to numbness and a need for more and more extreme experiences.
It's like you're chasing that high
Right.
and you can never quite get there.
And it's not just video games, right? It's all forms of technology that provide constant stimulation, instant gratification.
It's about creating that healthy balance,
Mhm.
making sure technology doesn't dominate their lives.
Right, because we want them to be present, engaged in the real world.
Exactly. Speaking of balance, he also talked about diet and brain health,
Oh, yeah, this is a fascinating area.
right?
He shared this incredible story about a patient who had extreme behavioral reactions to red dye,
Really?
the kind found in candy, and even some cough syrup. And the patient's brain scans showed a dramatic increase in hyperactivity after consuming red dye.
That's amazing.
It's wild.
It's a reminder that what we put into our kids' bodies has such a huge impact.
On their mental and emotional well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. And to really understand how all these factors come together, right? Dr. Amen introduced this concept of the 4 circles that influence a child's development.
Oh, the 4 circles. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so those circles are biology,
Okay.
including brain health,
Yeah.
psychology,
How they think,
social circles,
their friends, their relationships.
and spirituality.
Interesting.
And he believes all 4 of those circles need to be nurtured for a child to truly thrive.
I like that. It's a holistic approach.
And while we're on the topic of difficult subjects, he also addressed divorce.
It's a tough one.
It is. He acknowledged that it's never ideal, but stressed that staying in a chronically unhappy, conflicted relationship is actually worse for children.
That's so true.
And his advice for parents going through a divorce: prioritize a healthy co-parenting relationship and avoid speaking negatively about the other parent in front of the child.
Because that child is half of each parent. So criticizing one parent is criticizing the child.
It's about putting the child's needs first,
Even when it's difficult.
even when it's difficult. So we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. From the foundation of secure attachment to the importance of setting boundaries and creating a healthy balance in their lives.
A lot of great takeaways.
And what's so powerful about Dr. Amen's approach is that it's not about being a perfect parent.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
Understanding our children's brains and providing them with the tools and support they need.
To grow into strong and resilient individuals.
Exactly.
And one of the most valuable tools we can give them is the ability to understand and manage their emotions. So we'll delve deeper into that in the next part of our deep dive,
Looking forward to it.
where we'll explore specific strategies for helping kids navigate their feelings and develop emotional intelligence.
Sounds great.
Stay tuned.
So welcome back to our deep dive on raising mentally strong kids. As we've seen, it's not about protecting them from every hardship. It's about giving them the tools to face those challenges head on.
Right. And in this part, we're going to get even more practical. Like, how do we actually put these principles into practice? Because parenting is messy, right?
It is. It's definitely not always picture perfect. And Dr. Amen acknowledges that.
Yeah, which is reassuring.
It is. And one of the key takeaways from this love and logic approach is allowing kids to experience those natural consequences of their actions.
And that can be tough for us as parents.
Yeah.
We want to protect them, right?
We do. Our instinct is to shield them from discomfort.
Exactly.
But what Dr. Amen says is letting them face those age-appropriate consequences. It actually helps them learn responsibility and self-reliance.
Okay, so could you give us an example?
Sure, so let's say your child forgets their homework
Mm.
and you rush to school to deliver it. They might get off the hook that one time, but what have they really learned?
Not much.
Not much, right?
They haven't learned to plan ahead or take ownership.
Exactly.
And they might learn that you'll always bail them out.
Right, and we don't want to create that pattern.
So it's not that we just sit back and watch them fail.
No, not at all. It's about providing support and guidance while still letting them experience those natural outcomes.
Okay, so finding that
It's that
balance.
sweet spot, yeah.
And that kind of ties into another principle, avoiding power struggles.
Ooh, those are tough.
So easy to get caught in those battles of will.
Especially with strong-willed kids.
Right.
But love and logic encourages us to shift our approach. Instead of dictating, we can offer choices.
Okay, I like that.
So for example, instead of saying, clean your room right now,
Mm-hmm.
you could say, you have two choices. You can clean your room before dinner or after dinner. Which do you choose?
That's brilliant.
It gives them that sense of agency.
But you're still getting the room clean.
Exactly.
And speaking of desired outcomes, consistency is key, right?
Oh, absolutely. If we're constantly changing the rules, making exceptions, it creates confusion and insecurity for kids.
Yeah, they need to know what to expect.
Predictability is so important. It actually reduces anxiety for everyone involved.
Makes sense. Now let's talk about a really crucial aspect of raising mentally strong kids. Teaching them to manage their emotions, especially in today's world, right? They're bombarded with stimuli from every direction.
It's overwhelming.
It is.
And this is where that neuroscience piece comes in. Dr. Amen explains that when kids are stressed or overwhelmed, their prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for decision-making and impulse control, it basically goes offline.
So they're not thinking clearly.
Not really, no. It's
Yeah.
like their emotions are hijacking their brains.
Wow.
And that's why it's so important to teach them those simple techniques,
Oh,
like
no.
deep breathing, mindfulness, positive self-talk.
Okay, those are good tools.
They can help them calm down when they're feeling overwhelmed and make more thoughtful choices.
It's like giving them a toolkit for their emotions. And speaking of tools, Dr. Ammon also emphasizes this idea of developing a growth mindset.
Growth mindset, I love that.
It's teaching kids to view challenges as opportunities for learning and growth, rather than as threats to their self-worth.
Because we all know setbacks are going to happen, right?
For sure.
But if a child believes they can improve their abilities through effort, they're more likely to embrace those challenges and bounce back from setbacks.
So it's the difference between saying, I'm not good at math, and saying, I'm not good at math yet.
That yet is so powerful.
It really is.
It opens up a whole world of possibilities.
And that's the essence of mental strength, right? It's not about being perfect.
It's about having the tools and the mindset to navigate those ups and downs. And to do it with resilience.
So I know some of our listeners might be thinking, this all sounds great in theory, but how do I actually do this?
Yeah.
Dr. Amen gives a lot of practical strategies in his book, but one that stood out to me was this concept of antecedent control.
Oh, antecedent control. That's a game changer.
Tell me more.
It's basically about identifying the triggers that lead to challenging behaviors and then making changes to the environment or routine to minimize those triggers.
Okay, so it's like being proactive.
Exactly.
So for example, if your child tends to have meltdowns when they're hungry,
Right.
you make sure they have regular snacks and meals.
Exactly.
Or if they struggle with transitions.
You provide them with clear warnings, maybe a visual schedule.
It's about setting them up for success.
Absolutely.
And what about when those inevitable misbehaviors do happen? How do we address them in a way that promotes learning and growth, rather than shame and punishment?
This is where love and logic really shines. Dr. Amen stresses the importance of responding to misbehavior in a calm, respectful manner.
So not yelling, shaming, or punishing.
Right, because those reactions often just escalate the situation, and they can damage a child's self-esteem.
Exactly.
Instead, love and logic encourages us to use natural consequences, logical consequences, and empathy.
So break that down for me.
Sure. Natural consequences, as we discussed earlier, are just the inevitable outcomes of a child's actions.
So, like, if they refuse to wear a coat on a cold day,
They're going to get cold.
they're going to get cold.
It's a natural consequence.
Right, makes sense.
Logical consequences are those that are directly related to the misbehavior. So, if a child breaks a toy, they might lose the privilege of playing with that toy for for a period of time.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then empathy is all about acknowledging and validating their feelings, even when their behavior is unacceptable.
So you could say something like, I understand you're angry, but it's not okay to hit your sister.
Exactly.
Let's find a different way to express your anger.
Right. It's about teaching them that their feelings are valid, but their actions have consequences.
Right, and giving them those tools to cope.
Exactly. And this also ties into another important aspect of raising mentally strong kids, helping them identify and challenge those negative thoughts.
Because we all have those, right?
Yeah, we do, but for some children, those negative thoughts can become so frequent and intense that they start affecting their mood, their behavior, their self-esteem.
It can be really debilitating.
It can. And that's where we can step in and empower them. Dr. Amen suggests teaching children to recognize their negative thoughts, challenge them, and replace them with more positive, realistic thoughts.
So instead of thinking, I'm a failure, they can learn to say, I made a mistake, but I can learn from it.
Exactly.
That's so powerful.
It's about reframing their thinking and building that resilience.
And are there specific tools for doing that?
There are things like thought journaling, affirmations, cognitive reframing.
It's like giving them the tools to become their own inner coach.
Exactly. And remember, we're not aiming for perfection here. Not as parents, not as children. We're all works in progress.
Right, it's about the journey.
It is. The key is to create that supportive environment where mistakes are seen as opportunities for learning and growth.
So we've talked about letting kids experience those natural consequences, avoiding power struggles, teaching emotional regulation skills, fostering a growth mindset, and responding to misbehavior with empathy and logic.
It's a lot to digest.
It is, it is.
But I think the beauty of it is all these principles work together. They create a more harmonious and resilient family dynamic.
And before we wrap up this part, I want to touch on another point Dr. Ammon made. The power of focusing on the positive.
Oh, that's so important.
It's so easy to get caught up in the negative, right?
It is, especially when our kids are struggling.
Exactly.
But focusing on their strengths, their accomplishments, their positive qualities, it can make a world of difference.
It's not about ignoring the challenges.
Right.
It's about balancing the negative with the positive.
Absolutely.
When we focus on their strengths,
Yeah.
we help them develop more positive self-image.
Which boosts their confidence and resilience.
Exactly.
And it also strengthens our bond with them, creates a more positive family environment.
So celebrate those little victories. Acknowledge their efforts.
Remind them of all the amazing things they're capable of.
I love that. So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, let's carry that spirit of positivity and possibility with us. We'll explore even more practical tips and strategies, from creating calming routines to fostering a sense of purpose and meaning.
Sounds great.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive. It's our final part, exploring all this great information from Dr. Amen. And gosh, I feel like we've gotten so many great takeaways already.
Oh, absolutely. Tons of good stuff. But before we wrap up, there's one thing that really stuck with me. Dr. Amen's emphasis on parents taking care of their own mental health.
Oh, that's so important.
It is. You know that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup? It's
Yeah.
so true.
It's hard to be that patient, understanding parent we want to be if we're exhausted and burnt out.
Exactly. And Dr. Amen, he's not just talking about sleep, although that is important, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He encourages us to prioritize self-care in all areas.
Okay, well,
Exercise, connecting with friends, pursuing hobbies.
things that bring us joy.
Things that fill our cup so
Yeah.
that we have the energy and resilience to show up for our kids.
That makes sense. And speaking of showing up, I think Dr. Amen also makes a good point about having realistic expectations.
Yeah, expectations for ourselves, expectations for our kids.
Because none of us are perfect.
Absolutely not.
And our kids aren't perfect either.
It's so true. There will be good days, bad days, moments of pride, moments of chaos.
It's just part of it.
It is. It's the messy, beautiful journey of parenthood.
It's kind of comforting to hear that, honestly.
It is. It takes the pressure off.
Too perfect. Too.
Exactly. And even amidst the chaos, there are things we can do to create a more peaceful family environment.
Okay, like what?
Well, he had this great suggestion about creating a calm down corner.
A calm down corner. What's that?
It's a designated space where kids can go to de-escalate when they're feeling overwhelmed.
I like that.
It's not a punishment area. It's a safe haven.
A place to regroup.
Exactly. You can put things in there like stress balls, fidget toys, calming music.
A mini spa for their minds.
That's a great way to put it.
I love that,
And it gives them the space to manage their emotions.
which is such an important skill.
For sure. And Dr. Amen also recommends having regular family meetings.
Family meetings.
Yeah, to discuss rules,
Does
expectations.
that have to be super formal?
Not at all. It can be as simple as 15 minutes a week. Everyone gathers, talk about what's going well, what challenges you're facing, how to work together.
I like that. Gives everyone a voice.
Exactly.
Makes the kids feel like they're part of the process.
And it's a chance to brainstorm solutions.
Turning those power struggles into collaboration.
Right.
And, sometimes it's not about creating new rules. It's about shifting our perspective. Dr. Amen shared this idea. Instead of focusing on what your child did wrong, ask them, what were you trying to accomplish?
Oh, I love that question.
It's powerful, right?
It is. It shifts the focus from blame to understanding.
It helps them think about their motivations.
And come up with different ways to achieve their goals.
Opens the door to empathy.
Which is so key.
It is.
Dr. Amen, he really emphasizes teaching kids to understand others' feelings.
How do we do that?
Well, we can read stories together that explore emotions, talk about how people might be feeling in different situations.
Encourage acts of kindness.
He even suggested role-playing
Oh, interesting.
to practice empathy.
I like that.
And of course, the best way to teach empathy is to model it ourselves.
Yeah, that's true.
When we show our kids compassion, even when they make mistakes, we're teaching them about forgiveness and grace.
And that goes a long way. And sometimes, we need to extend that empathy to ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Dr. Amen encourages us to view our kids' misbehavior as a form of communication.
So it's not just about the behavior itself. It's about trying to understand what need they're trying to express.
Maybe they're stressed, overwhelmed.
Maybe they feel disconnected.
So look beyond the surface.
See their heart.
I like it.
And when we address the root cause, we can often prevent that behavior from happening again.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear that raising mentally strong kids is about so much more than just discipline.
It's about creating a nurturing environment where they feel safe and loved.
And empowered to grow.
Exactly.
We're teaching them life skills like emotional regulation, problem solving,
Empathy, resilience.
and we're modeling those behaviors ourselves.
Showing them what it means to be mentally strong.
It's a big job.
It is the most important job we'll ever have.
And remember, you don't have to do it perfectly.
No one is perfect.
Just keep learning, keep growing, keep showing up for your kids.
With love and intention.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive. I hope you found this as insightful as I did.
It's been a great conversation.
Remember, the journey of parenthood is full of challenges and rewards. Embrace the messiness, celebrate the small victories, and never underestimate the power of your love and guidance.
Your kids are counting on you.
And don't forget, we're all in this together. Reach out to other parents, connect with resources in your community. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Until next time, happy parenting.